major breaking news coming in. Major Gogoi is now to face court-martial. Remember, after he was found guilty by the court of inquiry, we are picking up that orders have been issued to initiate disciplinary action against Major Gogoi. The court has held him accountable for at least 2 counts, and these are the details that our strategic affairs editor Snehesh is breaking. Fraternalizing locals, that is the Jammu Kashmir locals, in spite of instructions to the contrary, and also on the account of being away from the place or the spot of duty while in operational area. Major Gogoi is now all set to face court-martial after he was found guilty by the court of inquiry. We are breaking it first on Republic TV. We're also picking up details that the orders to this effect have been issued already, and there's going to be a disciplinary action. And Snehesh is now joining live on this breaking. Snehesh, over to you.
Well, this is the big breaking that the army has confirmed to Republic, that there's a has been initiated against Major Leetul Gogoi. Now, there are 2 cases under which, there are 2 sections under which he has been found guilty. The first relates to the fraternizing local in spite of instructions to the contrary, and second, being taken away from the place of duty while in an operational area. Remember that Major Gogoi is the same person who the Army Chief General Bipin Rawat had commended for out-of-the-box thinking when he tied a stone pelt onto the jeep to rescue a group of Election Commission officials. Following this, he was given a commendation medal, but later was caught in a scandal earlier this year, for which the Army Chief had made it very clear that he would be punished if at all he is found guilty. And now what we've been told by the top source of the Army is that he is being found guilty of 2 violations of 2 sections of the Indian Army Act, and he would be would face court-martial proceedings. The minimum could be to a censure to even spending time in jail. That is what the top source of the Army is telling his channel Republic TV right now.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about the accounts on which this court-martial is going to be initiated against Major Gogoi. Snehesh.
Well, there are 2 sections of the Indian Army Act that he's violated. One relates to the fact about fraternizing with the local. Now, the Army is very clear about its rules and regulations, very strict. The Army strictly prohibits any individual in the Army to fraternize with a local in any area of operation, be it in the northeast, anywhere that the Army operates. And this is the same rule which applies in Kashmir too, where the Army is deployed. Now, remember that Major Gogoi was seen with a local lady, and he was trying to enter a hotel for whatever that she had mentioned. But he was eventually caught and was involved in a fight with the locals in which he was beaten up. And hence the police case was registered by the Jammu and Kashmir police. The girl was found not to be a minor. I repeat, the girl was found not to be a minor. But the fact remains that he violated the Army Act by fraternizing with the local. The second is that he had come down to Srinagar even when he was posted outside Srinagar. He did not inform his senior commanding officer, neither from any of the unit. He did not take permission to leave his place of posting and come to Srinagar. And hence he's been found guilty on these 2 counts. Now he will face court-martial proceedings, is what the top source in the Army is telling your channel, Republic TV.
All right, Snehesh, what could be the consequences now? Because what does court-martial really mean for Major Gogoi and his career now?
Well, the court-martial is basically, literally would seal his career, because the court-martial is a formal proceeding, a legal proceeding within the Army Act, under which he would be prosecuted by the Army for violations of the Army Act. And hence, what we've been told is that he's likely to face any punishment. That is, the minimum punishment that he'll face is a disciplinary action against him, that he could be censured to spending time in jail. Remember that the Army is very clear and is very strict when it comes to the Army rules. And the Army Chief General Bipin Rawat has made it clear from the very beginning that he will not tolerate any misstep by any of its official beat officers or jawans. At the same time, he will stand by every single officer carrying out bona fide action. And this is exactly what has happened to Major Leetul Gogoi. Last year, when he tied a man to the jeep to save, a group of election commission officials who had come under heavy stone pelting, he was commended by the chief in public. He was given a commendation card, which came under severe criticism. But however, the chief stuck to his stand that he would stand by his men. But this time, earlier this year, when he was caught and there was a controversy, the chief had made it absolutely clear that if he has violated any sections of the Army Act, he would be dealt with very strongly. And this is exactly what has happened to him. After a formal court of inquiry was initiated against him, he has been found, Major Leetul Gogoi has been found guilty on 2 counts. One relates to fraternizing with the local, which is against the army rules. The second is leaving his area of duty and coming out to Srinagar without informing his commanding officer or without taking permission. Now, he will face court-martial proceedings for the same, and only time will tell what exact punishment is meted out to him. Back to you.
Yes, Snehesh, stay with us. Continue talking to us as we beam that video footage wherein Major Gogoi was seen checking in that hotel, and post that there has been an investigation into it, and now we are breaking it that Major Gogoi is going to face court-martial. Snehesh, any timeline set for this?
Well, there is no timeline that has been set for it, but yes, he has been. The action has been initiated. The army has ordered for a court-martial proceeding. The court-martial proceeding in this case would take anywhere between 1 month to a period which can be as high as 6 months. But this seems to be an open shut case because there are already cases. There is no ground on which he can really escape this particular court-martial proceeding. Back to you.
Yes, Snehesh, stay with us. Snehesh, also, you think this is really going to set a very strong precedent when it comes to action against the guilty, when it comes to violation of Army's Act will amount to a very stringent punishment. Snehesh, remember, this was what the Army Chief also said when this entire controversy erupted a long back.
You know, the Army works in a very simple way. The Army will stand by every single officer, the first officer or personnel or a Jawan, carrying out bona fide action. If it's a mistake that has been committed, it's fine. But as far as the intention is not wrong, it is fine. But in this case, Major Gogoi has been found guilty and strict action is being taken against him as per the standard operating procedure of the Army. And this is what the Army stands for. While you stand with the officers and Jawans when they carry out bona fide action, no mercy is given out to anyone who violates the standard operating procedure or who violates the Army Act, which is absolutely sacrosanct within the Army establishment. Or be it the Army or the Navy, all the 3 forces have the individual acts, and these acts are completely sacrosanct, and they stand and die by this.
Snehesh, how serious are these 2 accounts of the charges in nature, especially being away from the place of duty while in operational area, because the place in question is a conflict-ridden zone like Jammu Kashmir, particularly Kashmir?
Well, the violations mentioned for which he has been found guilty might look simple to a general viewer or a reader, but the fact is that this is a very serious mistake on part of Major Gogoi as far as the Army Act is concerned. Remember that the Army is all about discipline. The Army is all about following the rules. And this is exactly what the Army also stands by. And hence, Major Gogoi violating the 2 sections of the Army Act is a serious matter. And as the Army Chief had himself said, that he would be set an example of, because the Army Chief, from the internal messages that Republic has accessed earlier also, the Army Chief has sent out letters to his officers and Jawans, reminding them of the necessity to follow the standard operating procedure and to be above board all the time. The Army will not desert any of his officers or his Jawans when it comes to bona fide action, even if the entire, you have an entire lobby which continues to criticize the Army will stand by it. But yes, in case if there is a misdemeanor misdemeanor, or if there are violations of the Army Act,
Yes.
action would be taken.